the thought I had 24 years ago when I first asked George and the band to come was that Easter is a time of great celebration, but also a time of great mystery. And nothing like music speaks to that wordless place beyond faith and beyond affirmations that are just spoken and thought of. And music moves right into the heart of that celebration and mystery. I mean, where does a song like that come from? You know? Yes, Dr. Prado, he studied and he got these, he learned all the theory, but finally, where does a song come from? And but then the question is, where does anything come from? And I stand here this morning as a born-again Christian, Buddhist, pagan, agnostic. I'm proud of it. I'm clear that I was born and raised in the Protestant Christian tradition, and the living Christ means something to me. It's a light, it's a presence that I'm invited to embody. The Buddhist in me asked me to be present with a clear mind and to be in the moment and to let go of the past again and again and just come without attachment as much as possible. The pagan in me is just aware of the deep connection to the earth, that I and you and we and all are deeply connected to Mother Earth. And when I lose that connection, I lose myself. Because the earth is a living and loving presence for me. And I'm agnostic because I don't really know anything. But I do know that there is something, and that something is much larger and wiser than me, and that I can trust it as I let go of my little self and my little ideas how things should be. As I find myself wiggling and squirming and failing again and again to be a living Christ, much less embodying the Buddha mind, much less really honoring the earth. As I fail again and again and fall into my not knowingness, I'm invited to just relax and trust something larger than me is alive and living and unfolding in this moment. Which is a long way of going to say that the things I'm going to talk about this morning around Easter are my truth. I'm not saying it's the truth. I'm saying it's a truth based on my studies and my contemplation. But the real thing, as we gather here, I'm here, I believe we're here to support you in finding your truth. Not just as a concept up there, but as something that lives and has direction and helps make decisions on a day-by-day moment basis. On a good day. And on the bad days, that it's something you can fall back to and remember that there's more than just you and your own little stuff and your own little perception of how the world is. The great poet Robert Frost says, "We dance in a circle and suppose, but the secret sits in the middle and knows." So at some level, all of my different spiritual understandings, intellectual understandings, all of our intellectual understandings are spokes on a wheel connected to a hub, which is beyond comprehension, but connects us nonetheless. And as I stop to feel the miracle of the fact that, A, I'm alive, and then you're alive. We survived COVID. And that's no small matter, because we did. And we've survived amazing environmental degradation, because the earth keeps forgiving us despite what we do to her. And we've survived all the politics and everything that's happening in the world just to be here and to breathe freshly into this moment. I was raised in a very religious home. The church had sponsored my family's immigration to the United States when I was 5 years old. And so from the time I was 5, we and our family were always in the second pew on the left, there at the first box of the United Church, evangelical and reform of New Braunfels, Texas. And right away I started singing in the choir. Before I was 6, they put me up in the choir. choir loft because they knew I loved to sing. Even then, that was just where I felt most comfortable. Sitting up in the choir loft, looking down at what was the largest church in New Braunfels. I always loved the pageantry, especially at Easter. It was the one time the church was a really happy place. The other 52 Sundays a year was kind of a serious place, and everybody understood you had to sit still. But on Easter, everybody just sang in joyous songs and easy to sing songs for a change. But even then, by the time I was 9, 10 years old, I had deep trouble with the mystery of Easter. The mystery of what is this Lamb of Christ and the blood that was given for my sins, and why, after all the wonderful works that Jesus did, did people turn against him and crucify him? What was that about? Why is that part of the story? And it wasn't until many years later, after I began studying spirituality from a broader perspective, that I came to understand some important things about the Easter story. And the first thing to understand that I didn't get, I never got in all those years that I went to Protestant church regularly, is that Jesus was not a Christian, he was a Jew. And he was trying his best to be a good Jewish man. And he looked around him and he saw a whole bunch of Jews that had gone into a ritualistic way of expressing their faith that meant nothing to him. And he said, that's not what my Father meant. That's not what Spirit is. Spirit's alive. It's not just a matter of rote sacrifices and prayers said, blah, blah, blah. And he was mad because the Jewish faith, as he saw it being practiced, was not true to what his guidance said should be renewed. And the important thing about that fact is, A, Jesus was a Jew trying to be a good Jew, and the other thing is that Jews were in the minority in what we now call Palestine. They were not, according to the Bible, you think they were the ones in charge, but they were just a minority, not that much different from, say, the Afghani family that we've invited into our midst as a community. And many Afghani immigrants, or the Vietnamese immigrants that are here now, are very much a minority. So too, the Jews had somewhat recently in the history of the Far East arrived in what we now call the Holy Land. And the dominant religion in that time, in that place, was not Judaism. It was Mithraism. It was the religion of the Persians and the Babylonians and the Romans, who in turn had conquered that land and the tribes who lived there for many years. Because you and I were raised on the Bible or the Torah, we come to believe that the chosen people, the Jews, were the ones in charge. They weren't. They were people struggling to live in a land that didn't really want them. They struggled to find their place. And as such, the dominant religion of the time was Mithraism, the sun god. These were an agrarian people, and the sun and the seasons meant everything to them. If the rains didn't come, they were going to starve. They couldn't just go to H-E-B and buy something. They couldn't just go on to Amazon and ask for something to be delivered at the doorstep for them to eat. If the rain didn't fall, if the sheep weren't giving lambs, they were in serious hurt. So those people really worshiped the seasons and especially the sun god. A sun god who was murdered and rose 3 days after he died in the lore of the time and the place. Does that sound familiar? Is it any wonder that when this new religion of Christianity was coming into place, they would embrace and include some of what was around them? I don't know, out of curiosity, how many of you were raised in a Christian home, with the Christian church as a background to your life? Whether you were in it yourself, maybe your grandparents were, or your parents were, or yeah, most. So, for those of you who weren't, even I know we have some, our our fellow Jewish brothers and sisters here this morning, celebrating the Passover in a Christian way, in a pagan way, in a Buddhist way, together as we face into the mystery. Even if you weren't raised in church, the culture, the dominant culture in America, certainly in the 50s and 60s and 70s when most of us grew up, was definitely Christianity. And the story of the Easter and Easter candy and the Easter bunny and the celebration and the dressing up and the hats, that was there. It was part of the larger culture, whether you believed it or not, it was there. So too, whether people believed in the Son of God or not, whether they were Jews or this new rising brand of Christians following this rabble-rousing rabbi named Jesus, the Christ, in the background was Mithraism. And in the background was Judaism. And one of the central tenets of Judaism at the time was the need to make blood sacrifices, to slaughter a lamb at the time of atonement and at times of Passover. There was always a need to give blood sacrifices to say thank you to God for washing away our sins and giving us new hope in this day. And so it was that when this new teacher, after this new teacher died, and the scriptures were being written 40 to 70 years after he died, that they ascribed to Jesus the character of a sacrificial lamb, the lamb who died on the cross, so that his blood could wash us all away. And you think, well, I thought, as a 10-year-old in the choir, like, ooh. But understood in the context of the time and place, it makes sense that this new understanding of God, who was somehow loving and forgiving, needed some kind of intermediary, okay? Because there was an evolving consciousness. Spiritual consciousness has always evolved as humans has evolved. Once upon a time, our primary mode of transportation was our feet. And then some miraculous way, we had learned to domesticate animals and ride around on them, and then the transportation became the horse and the donkey and the ox. And then a wheel was invented sometime, and then the transportation became a cart. And then it became cars, and now it's rocket ships. And transportation may evolve beyond rocket ships, who knows? But transportation has evolved over time. Clothes have evolved over time. Food preparation has evolved. Once upon a time, we ate raw things only. Then we discovered fire, and then we started cooking meat, and then we invented microwaves. All I'm saying is all of human life, all of life is a process of evolution, and so too consciousness has evolved. And throughout time, new teachers and new teachings of spirituality have come to say, all of that was is true, and how about this? And so it is that Christianity was a new interpretation of Judaism. And that Christianity came to split into Protestantism and Catholicism, and then into Methodism and Presbyterianism, and then in the 1800s, suddenly Jesus was born again in Utah? No, New York, Missouri, I don't know, something. And I say that lightly and blithely, but what I know is that every teaching of the Spirit is another spoken wheel pointing to mystery. And who am I to judge anyone else's path? And who am I if I'm not someone who's willing to open again and again, to be fully present in the moment and bring Spirit into life, so I can be bigger than just my little me and my little selves? Because I think that's what Judaism and Buddhism and the Church of the Latter-day Saints all point to, that deep place inside of you too, and me, and you, all of us, somewhere inside of us, there's a mystery, and it's big. And it wants to be present, and it wants to be loving, and it wants to be more than just about doing homework, or having a job, or being a responsible parent, or responsible anything. And to go beyond that into the place that can't really be spoken about, even though guys like me love to talk about it. It can't be really written about, even though there are libraries full and hundreds, thousands of colleges and universities all around the world having books with the truth. But finally, like music itself, we're drawn into the mystery of this moment, into the mystery of understanding that life is more than just having fun and feeling good. And it's fun to have fun, and it feels good to feel good. But sometimes life doesn't feel good. And yes, Easter Sunday declares, hallelujah, that Christ is risen, new life is emerging, spring has sprung. And there's an important part of the Easter story that's often forgotten. And I'm just going to mention it briefly because it's been sitting on my mind for weeks now. And that's the notion that Good Friday is very important in the Christian tradition because it talks about the crucifixion, and it points to the fact that we all suffer. We're all going to suffer. We're all going to die. We all have to deal with the deep pain of loss and darkness and fear and doubt. There is no escaping that, and that's what Good Friday tells us. That's what Passover tells us. It tells us that all around us there are plagues, and all around us there is suffering. But there is always a path forward because there is something. I'm going to call it the holy mystery that is available and is ahead of us on Easter Sunday. On the other side of Passover, there's new life, and rebirth, and regeneration, and hope. But in between Friday and Sunday, there's a Saturday. And that Saturday is just a time of waiting and being with what is. And how many of us have faced a time in our lives when we just don't know what's next? And we wish we could figure it out. What's that new job? What's that new way to approach my diet that's really going to work this time? What's the way forward? And there's this part of us that is like, when is that Friday going to be over? When's the suffering going to stop? Haven't I suffered long enough? And so we're left on a Saturday. And I want to breathe into that together, because that's the power of gathering. Each one of us can think about this alone, but as we're here together this morning, I'd like you to feel what in your life has been a Friday, has been really a hard challenge. Mine just brings me to tears as I think of it right this minute. And then think about the Saturday in your life. Maybe it's around the same issue. Maybe there's something else that's kept you like wondering, what's next? When's this new change going to come? When's it finally going to get easier? Let's feel that together, and as a community, feel that you're not alone in that suffering, in that waiting, in that wondering. And then, as a community, let's feel the joy of this day, of Easter, of the promise of new life and hope. The promise that light will always pervade over darkness. Hope will always pervade over over fear. And that faith will always pervade over doubt. If and when and as we say, hallelujah. Thank you. Thank you for what is. Thank you for what is becoming. But all of creation, let us speak as one together. Hallelujah. Together. Hallelujah. Suzette can lead a meditation and take us into the truth of this at an experiential level.
So I invite you to breathe calmly and gently into this moment, into this spring day, to allow every cell and fiber of your being to resonate with all of creation. Creation alive with the blooming of colors and flowers, greenness of spring, inviting you to look around and see the miracle that is life, that is unfolding, that is vibrating through you. Feel that this holy mystery, that it itself is inviting you inward into your true self, into the largeness of life. So with your eyes open or closed, won't you see with the eyes of your heart and feel with the depths of your soul this exquisite freshness that is available to you each and every moment. As you allow yourself to be present with your surroundings, as you re-experience the truth of the one light that is renewed and renewing in your consciousness now. This one light that is made manifest as Jesus the Christ 2,000 years ago. The divine light that is being made manifest as the Christ in you, as the Buddha in you. The holy wonder of you, just as you are, right here, right now. Won't you breathe in that divine self that is dwelling in you? That Holy One, the higher power of your understanding, knowing that you are not alone. That you are deeply connected to countless people who, just like you, are willing to open, to embrace this oneness. This oneness, this divine life that is in each one of us. Won't you join in this process of releasing your higher self from this tomb that we tend to create from the context of our daily lives? Whether it's a tomb of fear, doubt, maybe it's about the coronavirus still in our midst, possibly a financial burden, whatever it might be. If it's shame or guilt from the past, you're invited to remember that it is only a self-imposed tomb. with limited beliefs that we each create. And it's also a tomb that you can release right here and right now. You're invited to rest, to renew, to receive and remember the truth of who you really are, alive and whole and radiating love out into our world. This is you. What peace, what power, what a vast field of possibilities are ready and waiting to be brought into manifestation through this unique expression of God's creative activity that is you. You. Can you feel that? Can you let yourself experience the sacred truth that is blossoming right now in the center of your being? That the inner Christ, the Buddha self, the one light that is radiating within you, is truly ready to rise and shine, to express, and that all of life is renewing, and this renewal is happening within you, just as you see it in the wildflowers and the grasses and the trees, the two-legged and the four-legged and the ones that fly. All of life is springing forth on this day that we celebrate together. This renewal. All of life is reminding us again and again to rest here in the silence right now. And now, from this place of peace, of power, of feeling the truth of who you are, won't you radiate that love and that light out into our world? Send forth all that you have, whether to one person or to all beings everywhere. Not needing to fix anything or anyone. Radiating from the deepest part of you. Send forth that light and that love. And feel it magnified and multiplied by your willingness to be an instrument of the divine. Of this love and this light that we all share. May all beings be blessed by our willingness to do this. And so it is.